What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast here at the Culture Wave Media Network, and we are back to discuss a film that we were lucky enough to get that just premiered at South by Southwest Film Festival, and also it's going to be in theaters as of this recording, and when it's released on our channel, it's in theaters now, so hopefully you guys have a chance to check it out. It is Forbidden Fruits. This film stars Lili Reinhart, Victoria Pedretti, Alexandra Shipp, and Lola Tung. I'm going to be one of your hosts. My name is Darian Liz. I am joined this time by Liz Seiko.
Hi, DJ.
Hi, Liz. So this was a movie that I don't know if you saw any of the marketing for it, but I knew nothing about this movie other than I knew that Lili Reinhart and Victoria Pedretti were doing kind of a female-centric horror movie. And then all the marketing hit like a week before South by when it had its premiere. And so I didn't know much about this. I kind of went into it thinking that it was going to be kind of like a slasher. Like so here's a movie that I haven't seen, so I have no reference point for it, but people have talked about this movie, and this was the vibe I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like Bodies.
Okay.
Which I haven't seen.
I've seen it.
So maybe you can validate that or say no, like that's not the vibe that you got from this. But what this movie is, and I said this at the top, it's been in some reviews, so I'm kind of stealing it a little bit, but it's really indicative of what this identity of this movie is. It's Mean Girls meets The Craft. That's really what this film is. It's a girly pop, hardcore, millennial, female-centric film. And it's an all-female team. Meredith Alloway is the writer and director on this. Diablo Cody, who's done a bunch of great screenplays. I think she was nominated for screenplay at the Oscars for Juno. She also did Jennifer's Body, which is like a cousin to Forbidden Fruits, basically, in my mind. And so I kind of just want to get your first thoughts on what you thought of this movie. And we're going to really try to steer clear of spoilers for this review because this movie is in theaters now. We want you guys to have a chance to see it. It's distributed by IFC. It's a smaller kind of company. So hopefully people can go out and see this movie in their local theaters or AMCs. So Liz, for you, broad thoughts. And what did you think kind of going into this movie when we first got the screener?
Yeah, I think I had seen the trailer, but like not the full thing because I just stopped it because I didn't want to see any more of it. And I didn't love the trailer. I was like, oh, this seems very millennial, like Gen Z-ish. And like, I don't know, I'm just not drawn to those films right now. I was so happy that this film is not like that at all, though. I had a blast watching this. It's super campy, super weird, and like a lot going on, but in a very good way. Like they're trying to make jokes and but keep it very honest about like girlhood and make relevant today jokes, which I think is hard because all of a sudden you're making fun of people that are like going and seeing this. So I think it can be like a tough thing to balance, but I had a really great time. I was worried when I first started it. I was like, okay, this is either going to really go well or it's going to nosedive down. But I truly think that because of the cast and the performances and that all of the cast was on the same page for what the tone was and where this was going to go, that's why it ended up being a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I unlike you, which we kind of flipped on this, I didn't see anything for this movie other than the posters and the images.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't watch a trailer. I didn't know what I was going into. I'd watched another movie a little before it that was similar in terms of, not in terms of the genre, but in terms of kind of the way they were going forward with a very female-centric cast. And it was one that I really didn't jive with at all. I was just like, this isn't my cup of tea. It's not what I'm kind of looking for. With this film, though, I'm kind of the opposite from the jump. I was so in. Like, I was so ready for all the campiness. Because the immediate first film I did think of was Mean Girls, which it's hard to replicate that kind of vibe in a movie that comes out 22 years after Mean Girls did. And I remember, if I'm not mistaken, Vinny, who's producing this right now, I'm pretty sure your first or one of your first reviews on here we did was Mean Girls, right? And it was the three of us. I know you're not on camera right now,
like
but
the
musical version,
musical, yeah.
Which I remember coming out of that and being like, this just, and it was different. It was a musical. It was adapted from the film.
Yep.
But it just wasn't where I wanted it to be in terms of like Mean Girls is a universal comedy that is still baked in what it's like to be a female, what it's like to grow up in this kind of that day and age. And so they get all these great young actors together. You got Lili Reinhart, who's probably best known for Riverdale. She took my breath away last year in Hal & Harper, which was a very, very, very different role than this, which is also great to see her kind of doing some different things in terms of genre. Victoria Pedretti, which a lot of people would know from the Mike Flanagan Netflix series, and also You, which is was a global phenomenon. I know we both watched You. Alexandra Shipp, she's been in a few different things. She's done things like franchise stuff like X-Men, but she also was the love interest of Andrew Garfield in Tick Tick Boom. And then Lola Tung. So Lola Tung, I've never watched Summer I Turned Pretty.
I haven't either.
So I saw her in a film at Sundance, where she has a supporting role. She doesn't really get a lot to do. She's kind of the foil to kind of drive the plot forward. She's kind of the person at the center of the story.
Yeah.
And so I was curious on how that was going to be, and I thought she was really great in this as well. But basically setting the stage for this movie, without giving away too much, is that the whole film takes place in a mall, which I also love. Like,
I do too.
There's a few movies that I've seen that take place in a mall. I mean, like, there's a lot of mall cop things that I've seen, like Paul Blart.
Absolutely.
Observe and Report. Have you seen Observe and Report?
No, I haven't.
So that's Seth Rogen and Michael Pena. I've seen that one. And then Mallrats, which is like a real throwback to the 90s.
Okay.
But again, like, we haven't seen that setting for women, which I thought was really interesting. And you set the stage right away with mall culture and what it's like to be in a mall, what it's like to be in the food courts, kind of getting their day started, opening up the store, what that all looks like. Which I think is, again, it's different for modern cinema. Like, we're not getting that right now. And it's such a simple thing to be like, let's set this whole thing in a mall and let it run with our location and really take advantage of it. And they do that from the jump. And Lili, Victoria, and Alexandra play the Fruits, they call themselves. The Fruits. Do you want to break down the Fruits for the audience?
Like their names?
Yeah, you can give us the names. You can give us the vibe of what their kind of tone is as a group.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a play on Mean Girls. It's this group of girls called the Fruits. Lily's name is Apple. Then we have Victoria is Cherry. And then Alexandra is Fig, which, I mean, just the fact that they only call each other that throughout the whole film too, and you're just like, okay, yep, these are their names, and we're not even going to question how they got them or like if they're questioning it or what's going on. You're just kind of thrown right into their world and along for the ride with them. And they work at, what's the name of their Free Eden.
Free Eden, yeah.
Yep. So a lot of layers of like Adam and Eve going on in there. And there's a lot of different layers happening throughout the writing of just like womanhood, eating apples, a very witchy tone as well. You can kind of tell right away that they're a coven, not in like a literal witch sense where at least not in the beginning, not literal. You're not actually watching them cast spells and they don't have wands, but eventually as things go on, they do start to do a little bit of spell work.
Rituals, yeah.
A little bit of rituals, yeah. And it's just funny watching the layer of Lola's character Pumpkin come into this group and almost like blossom in a way. Because when you see her, she's starting off first as this character who works at like a knockoff of Annie Ann's.
Yeah.
And then watching her get taken into like the hot girl store.
The hot girl club.
The hot girl club. Yeah. Which also, just like a complete side note, the amount of money that they show is being spent at this store is crazy.
It's hilarious,
it's
too,
hysterical.
though. Like, they're like, oh, you want this scarf that's going to be $250.
Yeah, or they're like, oh, here you go. Your total's $10,000.50. And then it's just like, have a great day. And you're like, wait, what? What kind of mall? Like, what kind of mall are we in right now? And I think that that's why it's such a successful film, is because it really does lift reality in a way. In every aspect. It's not just in the clothes that they wear or the witchiness or their names. It's like even in those small details of how much people are spending at a clothing store or at a mall. And I think you have to kind of give into it a little bit in order to enjoy the film. If you're going to take it very literal and serious, you're probably not going to have a good time watching this. But if you're able to let reality lift a little bit and just go where the world takes you, you're going to have a great time.
100%. And that's why I said, like, I felt like the first scene is interesting in terms of the way that the rest of the movie kind of unfolds. And you kind of get, excuse me, by the conclusion, you get the reasoning for why Apple does what she does in the opening scene. But I do think that so much, again, is built on the relationship between the three of them, and then eventually the four of them, but the singular personalities that each of them have within the group.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit before we started recording about Victoria Pedretti in this as Cherry. And I had seen somebody talking in a review of this film about how they were like, I'm so curious on what her Glinda would have looked like. I don't know if she auditioned for Glinda, but it gives a little bit of Glinda vibes, but it plays into that the Mean Girls trope. I don't remember is it Amanda Seyfried? Yeah, it is.
It's Karen.
Yeah. Amanda Seyfried's character in Mean Girls is like Cherry to a degree. Like she's very
the ditzy, airy.
Yes. But throws caution to the wind. And again, this is an R movie. Like this is something where is Mean Girls R? No, it's not, right? It's PG-13.
I think it's PG-13.
Yeah, but so like this is she has a little bit more freedom to do a little bit more in terms of the physicality with the role, in terms of the dialogue and stuff like that. And even that, like the script to me is something, like you said in the beginning, it either can crash and burn with how big of a swing they take, or it hits that sweet spot of like, this is really funny and I'm vibing with, even if you're not like, it's not the moments where you're like laugh out loud with everything.
Yeah.
The irony in certain situations, the dynamic between the fruits and what all of that encompasses. When we get to the first ritual scene, you're just like, this is ridiculous in the best possible way.
Yeah.
Like they're making rituals with bedazzled boots. Like it's great. And it really stands a test, in my opinion, to like, I just came out of this being like, this is so original in comparison to a lot of these other projects we're getting, not only like projects in general, but also female-centric projects where like it reminded me, it's not to the same level, so it's not the substance, but I appreciated what the substance was trying to do. This goes a lot more campy and a lot bigger with what they're trying to do, but it does stand on its own. But it also has that Jennifer's Body vibe. Like, I don't know if you got that too, because Diablo Cody wrote the script for that. She's an executive producer on this. I feel like the, writer-director either might have reached out to her or was like, listen, like, this is the vibe I'm going for. Like, what do you think? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same world. I don't think, obviously, the stories are, like, nowhere near the same. But I think just, like, the undertones of, like, the comedy that's in Jennifer's Body is very present in the comedy that's here. It's not laugh out loud, like slapstick slapping your knee funny. Yeah. It's much more subtle in the way that like the women look at each other, or like the awkward pause that they have of watching what somebody's wearing from afar. So I think it's much more smaller details that add up over time. And I agree. I think although Forbidden Fruits kind of takes the like skeleton of Mean Girls and The Craft, I think that what makes it original is all the little details and the nuance. I mean, there is such specific dialogue in here, and there's a lot of little innuendos and little just like little elements that you pick up at every moment that, when you bring it all together, just makes it into such a fun and unique story that I haven't seen before.
Yeah, and I think even the technicality for some of this. So first of all, the costume design is very distinct.
Yes.
And it's great. It works great for their personalities. It works well for, again, being in this kind of mall culture and being upscale and kind of hemorrhaging the insecurities of the customers that come into the store and being like, you want to look like us? Like, this is how you do it.
Yep.
But also, and again, like we're going to stay away from spoilers, but this does, towards the end of the film, it takes a more gruesome turn. And I thought that the work that they were able to do in that last 25 to 30 minutes was really impressive, especially a specific sequence on an escalator.
Yes.
So I love that this movie goes for it, like full tilt. Like they're just not throwing shit at the wall, but they have such a distinct idea of exactly what they wanted this movie to be. And they're not apologetic about how crazy and heightened it is.
Nope.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason that it works is because they also do have some serious notes underneath all the campiness. Like you do have those moments of conversations happening where one of the characters, I think it's Alexandra, is like talking about like I wanting to be with like a boy, but also being like, I don't want to become somebody's just sidekick, or I don't want to be somebody's just like tool that they're using. And so I think that it also starts to talk about womanhood and just like girlship in a way, of those conversations that you have with your friends of being like, yeah, I want to be a part of the girlhood, but what also makes me stand out amongst my friends? And then also it talks about friendship, of like the different and very complicated dynamics that can come from being in a girl group, and the very political stuff that can come up of just having a lot of powerful women in a room.
Yeah, like control is a big part of this as well.
Huge. Yeah.
And Lili Reinhart, I think, has the most to do in this movie. Again, Victoria has the biggest performance, but Lili really dips between the different dynamic of controlling leader, like very similar to a Regina George, but also having these very serious moments with her own trauma, with some abuse that she's gone through, and how keeping secrets and keeping the power dynamic within the group is what keeps it moving forward.
Yeah. And it keeps the story moving forward, because
100%.
honestly, you're watching it and you're like, I don't know what's happening, but I want to know why it's all happening and how and where are we going with this story.
Yeah. And I love, so Cherry and Apple have probably the biggest relationship in the movie, because of certain similarities that they share from when they were younger, certain things that, again, Apple kind of tries to keep under control of what Cherry has gone through, and she uses that manipulation to like the highest degree, to where Cherry winds up doing something, which again, I don't want to talk about specifically, but when that moment happened, because that's the turn, that's like that's the obvious turn in the film, like I literally said, oh shit, like out loud. Were you similarly in the way that the movie kind of just shifts in terms of genre? Because you know that it's going to be spooky, you know that there's going to be elements, and they even have some, like, they have music cues. There's a Emma Chamberlain's also in this movie, and you kind of see a little bit of background of her character and what happens to her. So that's setting the stage for what we get in the last 25 minutes. But when it does eventually take that turn, is it earned for you?
I think it is, because it's definitely like a slower paced film in the beginning with a lot of dialogue, and like it's campy dialogue, so it's not like long-winded conversations, but like it's definitely more of like building the suspense. So by the time that the bigger actiony stuff occurs, you're ready for it, and you've been waiting for it. So I was like, oh my god.
yeah it gets pretty crazy by the end. I don't want to talk too much about this movie because I don't want to give too much away.
No, I think that people should just give it a try. I think if this sounds at all interesting to you, then you should definitely go see it. It's definitely campy. It's
really fun.
Yes.
It's just a fun, entertaining ride for an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah, and I think that it's one of those, I feel like right now we're in kind of a time with film where it either needs to be a very seriously made film, or it just needs to be like a B movie that's on Netflix in order to make it big right now and like get the world to be talking about it. And I feel like we're missing this very small niche filmmaking where it's not taking itself too seriously, but it's still really entertaining and great content, and it's not just like brain rot.
Yeah, it's singular. I mean, what Meredith Alloway tries to do with this. And so I don't know if you knew this coming into it beforehand, but one of the co-writers on this, so Lily Houghton co-wrote the script with Meredith Alloway.
Okay.
And she made a stage play that this is based on.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that's something obviously that maybe Meredith had seen, and she was like, I'm so inspired.
Possibly.
We could do something differently with this. And I wonder if it takes place still in a mall on the stage play or not, because the setting I think is it really is a character of its own in this.
It is.
And Diablo Cody is somebody that I feel like she's kind of slept on in Hollywood, but I'm a big fan of a lot of the things that I've seen that she's done in terms of screenplays. Like, I think Juno's a really good movie. Jennifer's Body is like the closest thing in our generation to a cult classic at this point.
Yep.
Like the fervor for that movie has just grown and grown and grown over time.
Mm-hmm.
And the dynamic between Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried is kind of at the front of that. And she also wrote a movie that I only saw it once, but I remember seeing it in the theater and being deeply affected by it and really liking it, called Tully. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I have not.
It's about motherhood, and Charlize Theron's in it, and she had worked with her previously. But I'm a big fan of her work in terms of writing. So, and this movie feels like something that came out of her brain.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that she was able to probably come in and give a lot of those finite details to elevate the story and elevate the movie in a more theatrical way. Like,
I agree.
This movie plays theatrically. This is
Yeah.
why I want people to go see it in a theater, because you're going to have a fun time with it. You're going to walk out like being like, what a great experience in the movies. And it's one of those unexpected films that we get every so often with film festivals. And I think IFC made a really good movie, and I'm excited for people to hopefully go and check it out.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Anything else? Or
No, I think that was a pretty good description of it without spoiling anything, because it's part of the fun is figuring out like what is happening.
Yes, absolutely. And you should stay for after the credits, because there is a little stinger at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Won't give anything away in terms of that, but definitely go and check out Forbidden Fruits. It should be in theaters now at this point at your local cinema or at an AMC theater or Regal, wherever you guys can find this movie. Go seek it out. It's really fun. It's a great time. It's one of my favorite movies I've seen so far this year. So really enjoyed it. You guys can subscribe to It's Your Culture Wave Media Network if you're just finding us. We do a bunch of reviews for film and TV stuff. We're covering a bunch of other film festivals. We're based in New Jersey, so if you guys are from Jersey or the East Coast, shout out and check out some of our other stuff. You can also follow us on social media. All that stuff is below me in the video, and it's also in our YouTube description. So just signing off, I'm Darian Scalamoni.
I'm Liz Seiko.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.